Joe, what's up, brother? Welcome back, man.
Man, thank you so much for having me. I am very appreciative to be back on. I feel very special. So thank you.
You're making the rounds. There's no question. I've heard you on a lot of podcasts the last couple of weeks.
Oh, no, man. It's getting to be that time of year, right? We start here in just a couple of weeks, and I told somebody that the other day that it's going to be 110 degrees and 98% humidity.
It's the other day it was, I don't know what it was, like 99 2 days ago and 95% humidity or something. It was the hottest day of the summer, I think, so far in South Carolina.
Absolutely ridiculous.
Yeah. And the fun part is my air conditioning's been out for a week.
Oh, gosh.
We had to put an entirely new system in. They finally got it dialed in like last night, but it's literally been, luckily we have a basement with a different system, but it's literally been like 87 degrees in the house for a week.
Oh, man. Yeah, I keep telling Jack, obviously, you know my son, you coached him in high school football, and he's unsure of what he wants to do when he gets out of school. And I'm like, heating and air, electrician, or plumbing. One of those three, if you would start one of those businesses, when you get to be mine and Eric's age, you will be 100% retired.
For sure. You know what the other one is? Septic and sewage. Yeah. I had to have a septic guy come out to our house because of the hurricane last year. It like tore a bunch of septic stuff out. And I mean, the amount of money that those guys make, and that guy was pulled up in like a $90,000 truck, and he was about to go hunting on his like 500 acres that he owns. I'm like, oh yeah, you got it figured out, bro.
Makes good sense.
Yeah. So when I talked to you a little bit earlier today, you're like, hey, we got an all hands because we've got a big truck coming in. So did you get like your big RapX delivery today, or what came in today?
So I don't know if you can still see the sweat marks because I made it into my office. I went and had a quick lunch meeting and then straight into unloading a semi truck of clothing, and we had everybody. We had our head of marketing, we had our content creator, we had the warehouse guys, Cole, me, everybody but Jack Miles was in there unloading boxes. So yeah, that's what we've been doing. But yeah, we got quite a bit in today. We've got a couple more shipments coming, but by August 15th, we'll have everything except I think just a few late season items that will be trickling in.
Mm-hmm. Did you get the solids in yet?
I'm trying to think. I think most of the stuff today was RapX and Raptor. Oh, no, I do know we got the bomb pants in today. So, yeah, the Raptor, RapX, and solid pants, I know those came in today.
Yeah, okay. So I'm going on an elk hunt in September, the third week of September, and I know I put an order in for some solid stuff and some RapX stuff, which I was excited to see that you got like the tan, like some solids in the like the lightweight tops and stuff like that. I was super stoked about that because I think I ordered one or two of those.
Awesome. Well, thank you very much. We appreciate that.
Yeah, excited about that. So, I mean, I know you've talked a lot about this, so you don't have to like go super, down the rabbit hole, but I would like you to just talk a little bit about RapX so that, people who are listening to my podcast a lot, if they haven't heard about it before, the difference in that pattern from the Raptor pattern that was your original pattern, and kind of the why behind that. And then just kind of how you got there, and you don't have to go the long version, but I'd like people to hear about it.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I appreciate the opportunity to talk about it. So our original pattern, we're big into the natural predator-prey relationship. We think nature got it right, and camouflage patterns should mimic, with us being, ambush predators as bow hunters, or really any hunters, we're ambush predators, and it makes sense. We're hunting prey animals that are also preyed on by predators, like real live predators. So that's what we based our camouflage patterns off of. Our original pattern is our tree stand pattern, and that's based off the great horned owl, the same coloring, shades, depth of the great horned owl.
I'm going to hold these up while you're talking about them. Keep going.
Yeah, and then
this is the Raptor.
That's our Raptor pattern, original pattern that we came out with. And then our new pattern that launched this year is our RapX pattern. And, we had quite a few guys that wanted a more universal pattern. They do some spot and stalk stuff. They do some brush blind stuff. Maybe they go like Eric on a elk hunt once or twice a year. Maybe they could do a pronghorn, but they also do quite a bit in the tree stand as well. So we really got all the ambush predators. We got the bobcat, the mountain lion, the coyote, the wolf. It's even got some owl influence in there to make it a real universal pattern for a guy that does a whole bunch of different styles of hunting. That pattern will work really, really well. And then a guy that's super mission specific, that they are locked into tree stands. They chase whitetail religiously. That's all they do is hunt from saddles and tree stands. The Raptor pattern is definitely the way to go.
Yeah, this Rap X, which, if you're watching this on YouTube, I'm holding this up right now so that you can see the difference. And I held up the original Raptor pattern when Joe was talking a minute ago. It's interesting because I heard somebody else say this. I think it might have been when you were on Clint's podcast, but he was when you look at that pattern, like you almost see, like there's this feeling of movement in the pattern, which as I look at it, it's like it almost looks like hair. Right. I mean, like you're talking about the ground predator. I mean, it looks like an amazing pattern, especially for ground hunting.
Yeah. There's been a shift. The Bill Jordan and Toxie Hayes, they came out with a camo pattern. They kind of revolutionized the industry, and very thankful for all they did. And, there's been shifts over the years, and all of a sudden we've gotten into these giant macro patterns, these big macro patterns. And man, the logic of that does make a lot of sense in the fact that it breaks up your silhouette when you're sitting still, right? When you're sitting completely still, man, those big lines and those big shapes, it breaks up the human outline. The problem is when you move, right? And that's really where a micro pattern like the Raptor, like the Rap X, and like the actual predators themselves, they all have micro patterns. You don't see a bobcat with great big shapes all over his body. They've got a micro pattern, and it's because it doesn't amplify movement. But those big macro patterns, when you go to draw your bow or lift your rifle and you have to move, which we have to do at some point, when you've got a big macro pattern on, it exposes that movement more so than a micro pattern will.
That's well said, because there are some interesting looking patterns when some of them even look very digital, like almost like you're in the Matrix or something like that. And obviously, if you're on the ground, I heard you say that you were going to send some stuff over to the Whitetail Adrenaline guys. Just even though they're not sponsored guys, but I actually just had I recorded something with Jared like last week, and he's going to be on here in a couple of weeks. Great dude. So that'd be perfect for what those guys do. I mean, they live on the ground,
Yeah. I got to meet him, and it was very much in passing at one of the trade shows. They were a couple booths down, and fascinating guy and
good dude.
Yeah, he loves it. And so, yeah, Andy May and him are buddies. So I'm going to get Andy or I'm going to send it and let Andy tell him we're sending it. Just send him some tops and let him see what he thinks. But I think for where he hunts in Kansas, that Rap X, he's going to fall in love with it. And he may not. He may ball it up, throw it in the trash can, and that's certainly fine too. But I think he will really like it.
When you got I know you said you had worked on this for a while. Did you get prototypes out like during the season last year to the point where people were actually able to hunt with it?
So we were late with it, and I did get some to a couple guys that were doing some exotic stuff, some Africa stuff. I actually got to wear it in Texas in January. Andy actually wore it in Hawaii on his Hawaii hunt, and so we did get some field testing with it. So yeah, it has actually been out in the field, and guys have hunted out of it, and just 100% glowing reports.
I think, didn't Andy? I thought I saw him wearing it in a Texas hunt that he just did this spring too, didn't he?
If he was in Texas, yeah, he would have been wearing it for sure. Yeah.
Yeah, that's what I thought. Interesting. So let me ask, this kind of dovetails a little bit into one of the questions I was going to ask you, but it's a good opportunity to ask. So, I mean, I know you put this pattern together due to, request and a desire of your existing, consumer base, but in the bigger picture, like, is there anything that you see in the hunting industry, specifically in bow hunting or hunting in general, that you kind of feel like, hey, this is like tacking a little bit too far, like from the standpoint of just, are we getting a little crazy from a marketing standpoint to try to, satisfy the desires of people who just love gear that doesn't necessarily equate to better hunting?
I mean, that's a really good question. I mean, I think as humans, we try to make things easier, and a lot of times we do over engineer stuff. I don't think there's any question about that. I think you could have somebody on from any other camouflage clothing company on right now, and they would say, well, hey, we've got hundreds of guys that kill big deer out of our stuff. You look at the great big camo companies, you look at Asio Gear, you look at Kuyu, just two, for example, right there. They're 800-pound gorillas in our space. And there's hundreds and hundreds, if not thousands of guys every year that are dumping elk, sheep, giant 200-inch whitetails. They absolutely kill that stuff. You see guys that wear all solids that are going out and killing stuff. My buddy with Lone Wolf, Cody DeQuisto, he's a solid guy. He kills a big deer, seems like every year with his recurve bow. What I'm saying is there is a reason that natural ambush predators are camouflage. They are not in solids. They are not. You don't see a mountain lion in a solid color. His tans and grays blend into a micro pattern. You don't see a bobcat in a solid color. You go over to the predators in Africa. You look at the tigers. You look at the lions and how they're shadowing. It's not just a solid tan. You look at a leopard. You look at a jaguar. All these natural predators are camouflaged, and so there's a reason why. And again, we've already touched on that. So your question was, have things gotten over-engineered? I think they have. And look, people are in this, including myself, to make a living, right? And a lot of that comes down, it doesn't matter what you are selling, whether it's, knives or whatever. It can be knives, guns, bows. Marketing plays a big part of that. And big marketing plans can skew, if you will, consumers' behavior. For us, yes, we market, but if you just break it down into what has worked for thousands of years and look at outside of humans, what has worked, that just made a lot of sense to us. I'm not a rocket scientist. I'm just a country boy from Columbia, South Carolina. And it just makes a lot of sense to us. And we certainly haven't over-engineered anything with our camo pattern.
Yeah, no, I think that's a good way to answer it, because that's what I was asking, was just kind of in general, not specifically even camouflage, but just the hunting industry as a whole. I think there's a lot of guys who just like toys, and obviously we're men, right? We're like big boys who like to play with stuff, and so there's a lot of companies that kind of see that and produce a lot of things for it. To kind of piggyback on that, are you doing anything different this year from the standpoint of the way that you're approaching cell cameras? Because it's one of the things that I've kind of seen as I've talked to people in the off season is a little bit of a different response to the way they're using cell cameras. Almost like, hey, we relied too much on that. Like I kind of felt like I was chasing cell cameras. Like what's your thought process around cell cameras as you go into the season?
I think everybody has to decide what they want to do for themselves. As far as I'm concerned, I will get as many cameras out as I possibly can. And for me, it's to locate a deer that I want to chase. It's not necessarily to do anything at all about hunting that deer. It's to locate. Like most of my cell cameras in the swamp here, by October, they're going to be dead because I'm going to know what deer's in there. And I've got a plan in my brain of how I'm going to hunt that deer. So for me, I use cell cameras simply to try to locate a deer that I want to hunt. And then I go to hunting that deer. And so I'm not really chasing the cell cameras. I get it, man. Cell cams, corn piles, that's certainly a way to do it. And a lot of guys, have done that. And, my son, for example, he's a new bow hunter and he wants to have success. And I want him to have success, and I want him to get some does and stuff under his belt. And yeah, we've got a cell camera on a corn pile, and he's gone in there and shot a buck off of it. He shot a doe off of it. Am I teaching him the right ways to hunt? I would argue that I am, because he's getting some success. If I go throw him in a rut funnel for 3 years and he doesn't kill a buck, he might get out of the sport. We want him to have fun. We want, as new hunters, you want to have success, and that's a way you can have success. But as you mature as a hunter, I think, guys, what your question was, what about the cell cameras? And me personally, I think as you mature as a hunter and you start wanting to do different things, you want to challenge yourself and you want to start doing it more mano a mano with the animal and get some of the technology out of the game. Totally get it. And but as far as me doing away with trail cameras and cell cameras, I'm not inclined to do that anytime soon, because I really enjoy trying to hunt a particular animal of a certain caliber, and I want to know that type of animal is in the area where I'm hunting, or I'll go somewhere else.
Speaking of that, has your swamp buck shown? Like, are you seeing him this summer? Is he around?
I got my cameras, most of them out Saturday. I got a lot of them out Saturday, and my gosh, is it hot down there this year? But
it's freaking hot, man.
But to answer your question, no, I have not gotten pictures of him yet, and I have gotten another buck down there that is really, really nice. It is not him. It is on another totally different side of the property. But again, it's not, I've known about this buck. I guess this is going on year 4. Yeah, definitely year 4. And it is not uncommon not to get pictures of him until, early August. So I am expecting him to pop up in the next couple weeks. And I hope he's still in there.
Has Jack got a target?
Not yet. I got his cameras out on Sunday and what's today? Wednesday. So they've only been out a couple of days. He was down in Charleston doing an internship for a real estate company. So he actually just got home Friday. He got home Monday. So he's only been home for 2 nights, and we leave Saturday to go on a father-son trip. And so when we get back, he'll start getting stands hung and get all his stuff going. So yeah, he has been shooting this bow a lot. So I'm proud of him for doing that.
Yeah, that's good. I know you're shooting a prime. Is he shooting a prime too?
No, he's got a phase 4 he bought. We got it for him. I don't know if it was phase 4, 4 years old. Yeah,
3
years old.
Yeah,
so he's got a phase 4, and it's 65 pounds, and he shoots it really well. And he's deadly from. I haven't seen him shoot anything at 40, but from 30 yards and in, he's deadly.
Nice. Yeah, I know you just said this a minute ago, and I think it's obviously I'm a newer hunter too. And some of the people that listen to this, I think, are also newer people that message me, just because I think part of my newness attracts some people that are new. And I think that I had talked to you about that earlier, like I think it was in the summer, but all I'm going to worry about this year is getting on the board. I think it's really easy to get locked up in, there's so much content out there, and you listen to all these, like, gosh. You know what I'm saying?
Buddy, Bobby came down to get his books. We sold all of his books through Asio Gear, and we're down to there's about 1,000 or 1,500 of them left. And he came and picked the rest of them up to take back to his place in Tennessee. And we talked about that yesterday for about 45 minutes about there is so much confusion. And a lot of the guys are right. What they're saying is right, but it's not in the same context as where you hunt.
Exactly.
Like what Don Higgins says in Illinois is 100% right, how he hunts and what he does. If I try and do that in the swamp here in South Carolina, I'm gonna be frustrated. It's just there's. And the problem is, they're experts in their area, but if it's not what you do or where you have access to hunt similar properties, similar terrain, similar deer, it's probably not going to work for you. So that's the big thing. Bobby was talking about, a guy, maybe he kills one big deer and then he kills, 3 or 4 3-year-olds. And has really no idea, just spent a lot of time in the woods and killed it and get some recognition for it. And then starts to have, get invited on podcasts, start their own podcast, YouTube channel, whatever it may be. And so the information is a little bit cluttered. And it just, that's why I think I have been very fortunate to have, quote unquote, and you and I have talked about this before, mentors that are older, that have hunted in environments that I hunt in. So I've been very lucky to get my information passed to me from guys that hunt, similarly in areas and stuff as to where I hunt.
Yeah. Well, to kind of piggyback off of that, and I think, well, just to follow up on it, can you talk a little bit about just in general, right? What is the landscape of South Carolina, what that looks like, and to a certain extent, a lot of the South, like not all the Southeast, but parts of the Southeast, Georgia, some of South Georgia. What does that landscape look like, and how does that differ from so much of what people hear about on hunting podcasts that are hunting Illinois and Indiana and the Midwest?
Yeah, you just flip it around where you've got millions of acres of cornfields and hundreds of acres of cover. Just flip that the other way. We've got millions of acres of cover, and we've got hundreds of acres of crop field. So I'll speak specifically to the Congaree River Basin, which is where I do most of my South Carolina hunting. It is a river swamp that is full of giant blocks of hardwoods, giant blocks of pines, and giant blocks of cutover. And it is flat as a pancake. There is very little, if any, topography whatsoever. So it is very, very challenging to hunt when you've got that much cover, because the deer are bedding in different places every day. They are feeding. I mean, they literally, out of the browse that they have is endless, and we get a few cold days that can get some ice on some stuff, but as a whole, they have plenty of food year round to eat. So it is a very, very challenging place to hunt because there is so much cover. And with deer being, creatures of the gray hour, they're able to hide and move around in that cover, and it makes it difficult. And you top that off with a rifle season that comes in August 15th, goes till January 1st, and you can shoot 5 bucks. It's a tough place to hunt.
Yeah. And a lot of people that listen to my podcast are from the Southeast. And so not everyone has that swampy area that you have like in the river basin, but almost everybody does have a lot of pines, a lot of cutover. If somebody's like starting in that area, right, and they're like, let's say they don't have the ability to hunt a lease, or they don't have the ability to hunt private ground, what's a good, like, where do they start, right? Like what's point A and where do you go, like, when you get out of your truck?
Yeah, the beauty of public ground here in South Carolina, I am very, very fortunate and have access to a property that's really good. But the public ground in South Carolina, you can't bait on it, and they do have archery seasons and they do have archery zones. So the public ground here can be really good. I mean, it can get crowded at certain times of the year like anywhere else, but some of the guys I know that hunt the public are very successful, and it really is deer acting like deer. They're not there's not a bait pile and food plot and tower stand, every half mile. It's big open woods that you can't bait on. And I don't know about cell cameras, or trail cameras. I can't speak to that on the public here in South Carolina, but I know you can't bait. So it makes it a spot where deer are going to act like deer. But you're cool back. I'm sorry, Eric, back to your question.
Yeah. Just the original question was like, let's say someone's, newer to the game, or has, hunted private property or leased property for a long time, something they've been super familiar with. And now, they're going to go out and tackle something on public, or something big that they haven't, that's a brand new piece of property that they're not familiar with. In our topography with big cutovers, big pines, what's the best place to start getting out of the truck? Like where are you going to look for and try to identify? I mean, obviously in the beginning, you're just trying to figure out where are the deer, right? But how do you do that when there's so much space?
Yeah. So the early season can be super challenging because, like I mentioned earlier, there is so much food. But on some of these public pieces, they do actually they plant some dove fields for the public. So you got sunflowers in there. They do put in some food plots. So if you're interested in hunting early season, I'm going to go try to find muscadine vines. I'm going to go and try and find greenbrier if they've got any of those food plots, because my personal strategy is early season's all about food, either hunting right on the X, meaning right on the food source, or figuring out how the deer are getting to the food source and trying to ambushing them on the way. That tends to be a little more productive. It can be a little bit more difficult. So it's kind of 6 to 1, half the dozen the other. If you're hunting the ambush point where they're going to the food, you can probably get more cracks, or you do get more cracks at them that way. If you're hunting on the X, like on the actual food source, it's normally a one and done, because you'll have does, other bucks. That buck, maybe he comes in right at dark, and you're having to climb down or get out of there. So you have to have trail camera intel or glassing intel that buck is repeating his pattern and he is daylighting on that food source 2 or 3 days in a row, and then you can go in and kill him that next afternoon. It's obviously that's easier said than done, but that is a strategy I have done that's worked for me. And then also that transition zone between where they're bedding, which is so tough here, but how they're getting to that food source is the ambush point. So that would be the first thing I would do if you're interested in hunting early season, is going in and identifying the food source in that public setting. Now, there are biologists and there are park rangers and there are people that manage that public that if you're new to it, they can help you with it and check the ego and walk in there and go, hey, man, what are the deer eating on? Or talk to the local biologist and say, hey, I'm hunting X public property here in South Carolina. I'm new to it, man. I really want to have some success. What are the deer eating in August and September? What should I be looking for? And then you can find that food source. Obviously, South Carolina hot, September, even into October. I would probably, if I was going to hunt public, I would probably wait until the rut. I would not go in.
That was the question I was going to ask you next, is if it was something you weren't familiar with, would you try to hunt it early or would you wait until later? Which sounds like you're going there.
Yeah, it depends. It depends on schedule too, right? Like early season can be very tough. It can be very good, but it can be very tough. And on public, and I can't speak to that too much because I haven't done a lot of early season public hunting in South Carolina. But, season opens, a lot of pressure, a lot of guys running around doing different things. And as soon as those bucks get bumped early, things completely change and they're going to revert back to being nocturnal. So if it was me, I would wait until the rut time frame. And then what I would be spending my time in really March, April. I mean, you can go and turkey hunt some of these places is the best thing you can find here in South Carolina is an edge. And what I mean by that is where cutover and hardwoods meet, where cutover, pines, hardwoods, all three of them meet. Anywhere there's an edge where different types of vegetation come together, that tends to be a travel corridor that deer like. They're able to get into that thick stuff and hide so they feel safe. And so you find a lot of sign on those edges, and that also can be a really, really, really productive rut spot.
Yeah, that's good. So as you kind of head into this season, just from a personal standpoint, I know you've got this buck and this swamp buck that you have been chasing every year, but how has things is this season the same as 5 seasons ago for you in terms of what your goals kind of look like going in? Or as you've gotten older, Jack started to get into things like this, has anything changed for you in terms of what's important to you heading into a season? Or what are the things that you're taking, satisfaction from? Is any of that stuff evolving for you?
Yeah, Jack's 21 now, so it's time for him to fend for himself. So I get to get back to.
You're not setting him up on your honey holes anymore?
Nope. Doesn't matter what Natalie says. He ain't getting back in there. He's 21. He can get off his butt and go find his own spots now. So, yeah, that's changed for me. Let's see. I think for the last 4 or 5 years, I really have chased the older age class bucks, and I'm still doing that. But a lot of guys have said, man, you just need to start hunting the really the top end deer, the 170, 80, 90, 200 inch deer, and let that be the focus. And yeah, it might be 2 or 3 years between killing deer. And that's not me, man. First of all, I love to hunt. And second of all, I like to shoot deer. We love to eat them. Natalie eats them, Jack eats them, I eat them. And for me, it's all about wherever I'm hunting. Here in South Carolina, like I've found this one buck, and he will probably go 130-ish, I'm guessing. And for us here in South Carolina in the Congaree River Basin, 130-inch deer, my gosh, I mean that's a really, really good buck. And so I am very, very content hunting that deer. If I was in Kansas, it's got to be something bigger and more mature and pushing that 170 plus range, or, some big caged up 8-point that weighs 300 pounds. It's 150, 160 inches. But that's me, Jack Miles he wants, a nice velvet buck early and then hunt. But, I think everybody has to define their own goals and their own aspirations. But from a personal standpoint, I've hit on this a couple of times already. I like to find a particular deer and hunt that deer. And it might not be a 190. It might be a 130 in the swamp of South Carolina. And man, I'm over the moon to do that. Sometimes I'd argue that that's more challenging than getting the 190 in an Iowa or an Alberta, So yeah, I think everybody has to pick out what they want to do. And for me personally, that's what I like. I like the traveling and hunting, and I like to find a particular buck in whatever area that is and hunt that deer.
Hey guys, big thanks to Asio Gear for supporting the show. Asio is built specifically for bow hunters. Every stitch, zipper, and fabric choice is made to perform when it's quiet and the pressure's on. Their camo patterns are inspired by nature's predators, and they're purpose-built to ensure you blend naturally into the specific environment you are hunting. Make sure to use the code DONOTGO20 to get 20% off on your purchases at AsioGear.com. Asio is made for bow hunters by bow hunters, so give them a check. They're a big supporter of the podcast, and we appreciate them. Great gear. So I've wondered, as busy as y'all are with Asio, like, do y'all take turns hunting? How does this work at Asio HQ? Because, I mean, you're the boss man. You can go whenever you want. But I know Wells is a hunter. I know all those, or most of those guys in there. I think they're probably all hunters. But how does that whole thing work during the season? Because it's not like business stops.
No, it's our busiest season. And really what happens then is it is more keeping content fresh in the field, hunting content. And then we've got all of our gear in. The off season, lots of people think that's not super busy for a camouflage clothing company, but that can be some of the busiest for everybody.
I'm watching you travel, man. Like, I see how many road shows y'all are at between dadgum, like February and May. It's insane.
Yeah, it's a trade show every weekend. It's designing, it's meeting with manufacturers, it's looking at new fabrics, it's correcting things that may have been off a little bit, looking at different stitching. So that really goes on and is super time consuming. And then we really, when we get to about mid-August, it really becomes fulfillment, and we've got a great team in the office, and our head of fulfillment is actually not a hunter. So that helps a lot. So he fulfills our orders, and Cole, who is our operations manager, he is also not a hunter. Everybody else that works at Asio are full over the top hunting guys. So, your question was, how does it work? Man,
sounds like it works pretty. It sounds like you got the right people in the right seats.
We do, and everybody is local for the most part, especially guys that work here in the office. We've got a trade show manager. Trade show shut down, so he basically hunts from September to January. That's all he does is hunt. So he has a dream job until February rolls around, and then he looks like a zombie because he is going from show to show to show. But here in the office, being local, if a guy wants to hunt or slip out early, he certainly can. And then we've got to get content, and unfortunately, or I guess fortunately, somebody's got to do it. So I raise my hand, and we'll go out and just be forced to do those hunts and get the content and do the best that we can.
Are you doing more of that this year? Like actually filming hunts and doing, like, are y'all going to do some hunt films and stuff? I know in the past, a lot more of your content has been shorter form and it's been around talking about product or specific tactics, but are you actually going to be filming hunts and doing some hunt films for Asio this year?
We are. We've got a really good team of guys, outside of the core employees. You can call it pro staff or partners or ambassadors to the brand, and a lot of those guys do film. But yeah, we like on the slate, we're definitely filming a hunt in Alberta early season. I'll be self-filming here in South Carolina. Kansas will be a filmed hunt. And then we'll see about Mexico and Texas late season. If we're going to film those or not, we'll kind of see what we've got. But yeah, we try to keep the camera, even if it were just by ourselves in the tree at all times, because you never know, what may happen.
So if you had, this is one of those random questions, but I'm always interested in people who run businesses at like how they balance what you're doing right now with what's 5 years look from now. So how do you look at internally when you're putting business plans together? What does your project development stuff look like? Are you 2 years out, 3 years out? Like, are there some like big things? It's like, man, I'd really like to be able to do this, 5 years from now. Like, what does that look like just from a strategy standpoint within Asio?
Yeah, we're still young, right? We're still filling in all of our product line, and we're there. We've got everything that a guy could need in 2025. When we started, we had seven SKUs. We had 7 items. We had an early season pant, early season top, mid-season pant, mid-season jacket, mid-season vest. We had a late season jacket, late season bibs, and that was what we launched with. Now we had gloves and hats, but that was enough to get a guy through a season. And now I think there's 42 SKUs or something like that. But to answer your question, yeah, we are working on 2027 stuff now. We're tweaking some 2026 stuff. We got some interesting stuff coming in 2026, but we've got some really high speed stuff, and it may not come to fruition, but we're 2 years out on the development of it. And if it does, it will be something that the whitetail and really the camouflage industry as a whole has never seen before. And it still all revolves around that predator-prey relationship and how us as marketing humans somehow skewed away from that. And we're bringing it back. And if this stuff in 2027 works, it will be absolutely interesting.
Well, obviously that's product development stuff that you can't give up. But my next question was going to be, when you look at the industry as a whole, what holes do you see or what opportunities do you see, for not just you could talk about Asio, but just in general, like it seems like hunting has made huge strides from the standpoint of what's available to people just in the last like 5 years. And you always feel like, okay, what else could somebody come up with? But then 5 years later, it's like, oh my gosh, I can't believe what's been come up with. Where do you think some of the biggest opportunities are just in the industry as a whole over the next 5 years?
Man, that's a tough one. Where do I think there are opportunities? I can only really speak from a clothing standpoint because I haven't really done any hard goods. I think there's still a lot of room in the whitetail space. I mean, we go to trade shows and stuff, and we find guys that haven't heard of Asio, and so for us as a company, we think there's still a lot of room to grow in the whitetail space, and that's our world. And it all revolves around technology, right? Everybody is fighting the lighter, quieter, warmer, right? That's what everybody is chasing. Lighter, quieter, warmer, lighter, quieter, warmer. And so we're all in it. And so that's what will happen. Somebody is going to come out with a silent, windproof, waterproof membrane. That'll be something that'll be kind of revolutionary, because right now you've got to bond that stuff together and make it as quiet as humanly possible. And, you know, a lot we do, and we've worked tirelessly on a membrane like that. And the reason is because it's a barrier, right? It's a solid type barrier that keeps the wind off of you. And the performance of that thing is, it allows you, you know, where you used to look like the Michelin man going out, now you can wear one jacket with a base layer and be completely warm in single digit temperatures. And it's because of the technology and the insulation. It's warmer and lighter and thinner. And then that windproof membrane keeps all the wind off of you. And then you've got some fleece and some higher piled fleece to quiet that stuff down. So it is quite technical, and a lot that goes into building a whitetail garment that is ultra quiet and still performs. But then you get into the other side of it where it's got to be durable, right? You've got to have durable. So it's a never ending process that it won't ever end. So you talk about what's coming 5 years down the road. Well, it'll be the same thing in 5 years that it will be 5 years past that. Is we are in the process now of we've got design right. You know, we know, you know, with all of our team and all of the really high level whitetail hunters that run Asio, we've got our design down on what whitetail guys, what helps us the best. But what will keep the industry moving forward is the technology and these insulations and these liners and these different fabrics.
Yeah, I thought it was interesting that while like you said, not everyone knows, you know, what Asio is yet. It was very interesting to me as I watched, okay, Asio launches, and within a couple years, all of a sudden, Kuyu's coming out with a whitetail line, right? Sitka starts coming out with like that stuff wasn't out there before. I mean, First Light was over there in that space, but those Western companies didn't start getting into it. And I feel like people are really starting to recognize there's a whole lot more whitetail hunters than there are people hunting out west, you know, and chasing elk and chasing mule deer. Like that's the biggest segment of the hunting industry.
Well, that's why we started it, right? That's why we started Asios, because I had gotten to a point, you know, in life through business and personal stuff, that I was able to go on some of these higher end sheep, goat, elk hunts. And I got exposed to really high end apparel, the premium stuff, and blown away at the quality of that stuff. And I, you know, in the camo pattern, you know, worked pretty good for out west and where I was hunting in the Rocky Mountains or in Kyrgyzstan or wherever it may be. And man, I said, if I can ever think of a pattern that will really work in all the whitetail range and quiet some of this stuff down and redesign some of it so it works for us whitetail guys, like a low scallop bow hunting collar, and we've got, you know, flaps over our 4 quad pockets, and you know, there's things that really work for us, you know, being in the deer stand and shooting a bow at deer that, you know, the industry hadn't seen before. And so that was the gap that I saw was this Western line that was incredible as far as fighting the elements, but where the gap is converting that into a whitetail line. And that's what we did. Yeah.
Let me jump over to something else that I know that you took a really big turn in terms of you love to like play around with your setup, your arrow setup and your bow setup. And I know that this past year, at least in the spring, and I haven't talked to you about it since you started playing with it, but you kind of went ultra light, right? Can you talk a little bit about now that I don't know how much of that you did when you're over and I know the leopard hunt was just a rifle hunt, but what are you doing with that arrow setup? Like, what's it look like now versus what it looked like a year ago? What are you trying out? Are you going to take that to Africa with you? Like, are you going to bring it into whitetail season? Can you talk a little bit about like your evolution on what you're looking at this year versus what you were running last year?
Yeah, for sure. I do like playing and messing with stuff and feel like if you get complacent, that can kill you. So I have, my setup for probably 4 or 5 years was 470-ish grain, all-in arrow at about 74 pounds, shooting roughly 290, 295 feet per second. And it has been very, very effective. Took it over to Africa, shot roan, sable, big 700-pound kudu, a lot of wildebeest, and just proved over and over and over to myself that arrow setup is absolutely deadly. And, obviously bring it into whitetail season and very fortunate, shoot several bucks a year with it and have for the last 5, 6, 7 years. And I got to thinking about the 74 pounds, and I hunted this past year in some pretty cold weather in Kansas. And, like you, I work out a good bit and can pull my bow pretty easily. But when it gets super cold and you've been sitting there 6, 7, 8 hours, it still can be challenging to get that bow back with as little movement as humanly possible. These great big draw strokes that you see when guys are shooting 3D and they got the bow up over their head and they're perfect draw form. Well, as hunters, man, that doesn't work. You try that on one of these South Carolina deer and it's game over. He's going to see you draw. So
I had that happen to me. I went up to, I got invited to Southern Ohio in January, and I was in a tree, 7 o'clock at night. It was dusk and it was 9 degrees outside and the wind was whipping around. And I went through that, like exactly what you're talking about. And I had never, obviously we don't have that kind of weather down here, right? I grew up in that, but not bow hunting. And when I went to pull my bow back, I was like, different world, man. Just like you're talking about. Like it was like I was freaking stiff and cold.
Yep.
And that did not feel like the 70 pounds that I pull out, when you're in a tree stand in South Carolina.
No, exactly right. So how can we improve the setup that I have? I know the thing will zip through 700-pound animals like hot butter. I've shot multiples of those, so I know that setup is super deadly. How do we improve on that? Well, if we could get less poundage, that would improve on that, right? Because it's another variable that you can cut away. So if I can get down to that 65 to 67 pounds, how do I do that? So started playing with some arrow weights and ended up finding a 370 grain. That's all in. That's broadhead, insert, air shaft, fletchings, knock, the whole shebang, 370 grains.
So what is that? What's the spine on that arrow then?
It is a 350 spine. It is an HLR. It is a 350 spine HLR, which Victory makes. It's the new Victory arrow that just came out this year.
Okay.
And so I got those arrows and went and shot them. We make a mold, and God, I love the comments I get about my testing mold, about we don't shoot boards and we don't shoot Jello, we don't shoot cardboard, and I get all that. Yeah, I 100% check, got it. But it's a good standard to test penetration in, and there is a difference. There is a variable, right? We do see one arrow will penetrate better than another, and sometimes that's a heavier arrow and sometimes that's a lighter arrow. Well, anyway, I shot this 370 grain arrow against my 470 grain arrow, so 100 grains difference.
Mm-hmm.
And
10 pounds difference, right? You said you're pulling 65.
Yeah, 7 pounds of bow weight difference.
Okay.
And we were getting as good, if not better, penetration through our mold. So that was phase one. Okay. So I have proven that I'm not losing anything on this mold. If I'd shot it and my 470 grain arrow was out penetrating it by 4, 5, 6 inches on every single arrow, then I would have said, you know what, this is not worth going any further. It's a stage of testing. So now I'm headed to Botswana on Saturday, and again, we're going to be right back in the same place: wildebeest, kudu, gemsbuck, eland. Even an eland, that's the largest antelope in the world. They're over 2,000 pounds. They're bigger than a Cape buffalo. So we're going to try to shoot quite a bit of that stuff with this 65 I think it's 66 and a half or 67 pound bow, shooting 310 feet per second with a 370 grain arrow. And we're going to see how it performs on those type animals. And if I get the same results, if it's zipping through kudu, zipping through wildebeest, then I know that it's going to perform very well on a whitetail deer. So that will be the setup, the change. Now, if I get over there and it doesn't, if I'm hitting scapulas and big, heavy shoulder muscles, and I'm not even getting to the opposite side rib cage, then I'm out. I'll go right back to what I was shooting. So that's kind of the testing process that I do. And again, we may find that it doesn't work as well, but I want to test it. There's been so much in the last, 7-8 years of heavy arrow. And I just, in everything that I have done from shooting long to shooting close, I have not found any benefit whatsoever to shooting a heavy arrow, especially at whitetail deer.
So you went to a higher spine arrow, which reduces the arrow weight per inch. What did you go lighter on your components too? Like, how did you get it down 100 grains?
Yes. The insert is, I want to say it's either 15 or 20 grains. It's a titanium insert, ultra light. And we've got some really light, I think fletching's all in, it's a 4 fletch. I think it's 15 or 17 for the fletching. And then the 350 spine, I don't remember the grains per inch on. I'm looking around, see if I've got some laying across the room, but I'm not going to run over there and grab one of them.
Yeah.
But all in, yeah. So that's another thing is that I had been running 60 grains of insert up front. That does have me a little bit nervous on some of these bigger boned animals. But guess what? We're going to find out. We're going to go over there and we're going to find out. And, I could come home and we'll be right back into the heavy, that heavier arrow. 470 grains is not a heavy arrow. That's a very, very moderate to actually a lighter setup. But man, that thing really performed.
Are you shooting the same broadhead?
Yep. Mega meats.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Gotcha.
I'm taking the T2s. I'm not going to shoot an eland with a mega meat just because it's bigger than a Cape Buffalo, but I will absolutely shoot an eland with one of the T2s, and that's a 2-blade expandable.
Gotcha. I know that some people will carry, one fixed blade broadhead in their quiver in case they have to shoot through grass or shoot through, a little bit of something. Do you do that too? Do you carry a fixed blade? I
used to do that. My fixed blade, if I was a guy that loves to shoot fixed blades and am obsessed with the penetration, that T2 is like a fixed blade. Go look at all of John Dudley's reviews and shooting of that T2. I think he actually helped design it. It is just from a penetrating standpoint, and to the point that I was playing around with them when they first came out. I got a couple of them in my hands, and I was severely worried about them opening because it was tough. Like you press them on the corner of your desk, and it took quite a bit of force to get them to open. And I was like, man, I don't know how these things are going to open. So again, I like to prove it to myself, and I shot a warthog back a little bit. I didn't intentionally gut shoot him. I shot him in the back of the lungs. He only went 50 yards, but I didn't want to get into shoulder muscle and scapula. I wanted to get, just like skin and maybe some rib. And man, that thing zipped right through him. It went almost further than he did. We finally found the arrow, and it was a giant 2-inch cut right through him, through softer skin, on a warthog. And I said, okay, man, they open great. So that's not an issue of them opening. But, I would have, you shouldn't shoot through brush at animals, but sometimes when you're hunting a real thick area,
that's what I was talking about.
When it gets dusk, you might be hitting the edge of CRP or the edge of a cutover. And when it starts to get dark, you're putting that fixed blade on because, man, there's a chance that it could bump something that you don't see in low light. And I get that. But that's where I would shoot the T2 over a fixed blade head.
So you've got a T2 in your quiver instead of a fixed blade head.
Yep.
Okay. Gotcha. All right. Rapid fire.
Yes, sir.
Right here at the end.
Yep.
What's one hill you'll die on no matter what?
One hill I will die on no matter what, and we were just talking about it, that would be the heavy arrow. I do not see, even like Cape buffalo or elephant, where you got to shoot a 700, 800, 900 grain arrow, you're also shooting 120 pounds of bow weight. So you're getting that speed up to, 280, 290 feet per second. So I'll die on the hill that speed kills and heavy arrows in what we do, especially for whitetail hunting, or a no-go.
Okay. If you could tweet or put one message on Instagram that the entire world would see tomorrow, what would it say?
Stop the trolling. Guys, you got to have more stuff to do than to get on some. And it's not Asio, but I just see it all the time. The trolling, the keyboard trolling. That would be my message: is let's be kinder to each other and let's support each other.
What's the worst gear fail you've ever had?
Worst gear fail that I have ever had. Let's see. Oh yeah, this is one. And I won't say the name of the rifle. I was hunting Dall sheep in Alaska, and I killed the Dall sheep, and it was a nice one. But I racked another bullet into the chamber of the rifle. After I shot him, we went over to the sheep, we got him, and I went to unload my rifle, and the bullet pulled out in the chamber of the gun, and we were in grizzly country. And so I had a gun that was absolutely not usable until we could find, we eventually found a willow that we could get down the barrel and get that bullet out of it. But it happened multiple times. And it wasn't so much that it was the rifle. I still have the rifle, and it is my best shooting rifle. The ammo had been loaded. They had seated the bullet too far forward, and it just needed to be back just a hair. But that was really dangerous, and that could have been a problem.
Yeah. Most underrated piece of gear in your pack?
Most underrated gear, though, and this is not an Asio product. It is made by Kenetrek. It is a boot company. They make a polypropylene sock liner. And man, those things, whether you're sheep hunting, whitetail hunting, it doesn't matter what you're doing, that sock liner, I don't know how they did it. And maybe one day I'm going to knock it off and create some sock liners like that for Asio, but they keep your feet absolutely dry. So that is a must have for any serious trekking type hunt, mountain type hunt, or if your feet get cold and you're having to walk a ways and then sit for hours and hours in a tree stand, and you're going to be sweating up your feet on the walk in, those sock liners, and they're 20 something bucks a piece. So yeah, that's a must have item.
Does that help you retain heat too? Like if you just get cold feet, or is it just is it only for moisture?
It does some of both. It's a polypropylene, and I can't tell you what all is in that sock, but I wear it, and then I wear a thick merino sock over the top of it, and then I have a little bit of gap in my boot. Like when I get into severe cold weather, I have a half size bigger boot. I'm wearing 2 pair of socks, and then I want airflow in there. And the worst thing you can do is have a boot that's super tight on your feet when it's cold, because it doesn't let it circulate at all, and you'll end up walking around with like feels like you got ice blocks on the end of your knees.
Yeah. What's the one animal left on your bucket list that's like the next one, or is there one left?
No, for sure. I've got several. I'm checking one of them off this February. Mountain Yala in Ethiopia, one of the coolest antelope. It's a spiral horn. It's a Mountain Yala. You kill them in Ethiopia, and so I'm doing that in February. Want to definitely do a bongo. Want to definitely do a Lord Derby eland. So those three. Kind of got out of the sheep for a while there. I really wanted to do a Markhor. Wanted to do a high alti or galley, and those are sell your homes and live in a live out of your truck hunts. So that's going to have to sell a few more jackets and packs before we can do those hunts. But those really want to do those just because I love the adventure side of it. You hunt the bongo in the Central African Republic or Cameroon, and you're in the jungles hunting with the pygmies, and just that whole experience. Lord Derby eland, tracking them in the savannas of CAR. and then going to Ethiopia to the north of the Rift Valley. I mean, just parts of the country I've never seen, and very intriguing.
All right, last one.
Yep.
If you had to go into the woods with your clothing, your bow and arrow, and you got a rangefinder, but you didn't get anything else other than one piece of gear, what's number 4?
All right, so I got my rangefinder, I got my bow, I've got my clothing. I've obviously got, that includes boots. Ooh, man, the Quistos are going to be happy with me. I would have my 0.5. This is whitetail hunting, right?
Yeah, this is whitetail.
Yeah. I would have my 0.5 and my compact, whatever they call them, those butterfly sticks. That's what I would have, because I do like hunting out of a tree for whitetail.
Those butterfly sticks are nice. I haven't run those, so they're as good as they like. Those are light, yeah.
Yeah, well, the thing about them is, when with those other ones, you would have to turn the step either left or right, and inevitably, when you got to the top, you'd have them all backwards every stinking time. Or for me, that's just my luck. I would sit at the bottom and go, all right, I got 4 sticks. If I start this, I go, when I get to the top, this one's going to be right, and I can step right in.
Yeah.
Every time I'll have it wrong. So I just did it opposite of what I thought. So what these butterfly ones do, you can open it up so it's one on each side. It's genius. Andre, pioneer in the space, and just appreciate everything he's done. But yeah, that would be my other one, is probably the 0.5 and those butterfly compact sticks.
Awesome. Joe, it's always a pleasure to have you. I'm super excited about the getting my shipment and being able to take this stuff out to Colorado and chase after some elk with it. AsioGear.com, right?
Yep.
ASIOGear.com.
Yep.
People can find you on Instagram, Joe Miles Hunting, and then the Asio channel is just Asio on Instagram.
Yep, Asio Gear.
All right, cool.
That's it, guys. We appreciate it, man. Eric, thank you so much for having me, man. Always a pleasure.
Hey, man, I love having you on. I started this podcast 2 springs ago, so I'm going into my 3rd season, and I've had you on every summer going into the season, and you've been one of the guys who's been a great mentor to me as I've, taken this big leap into this and tried to learn all this stuff. And I can't tell you how appreciative I am of your friendship and your mentorship. It means a lot to me.
No, man, absolutely. Well, I appreciate everything that you do, and Jack really enjoyed. You taught him some definite life lessons on the football field. So we appreciate that, and yeah, man, thank you very much for all you do and the platform you have here.
Jack's done with a pacifier, right?
No, he's still got it.
Just so everybody knows, this is hilarious. This is such a sidebar, but so I'm a line guy, right? And Jack was an offensive lineman, and everyone wears mouth guards. Jack had a mouth guard that looked like a pacifier.
Of course,
literally, it looked like a pacifier from like Peanuts or something.
Yeah.
And it was so funny. But every once in a while, I'd get like super pissed off about something he did, and I'd be like, "Take that damn pacifier out of your mouth."
Yeah. That's his personality, right?
Oh yeah, he was just always like lighthearted and popping around. It didn't matter what was going on. He never got worked up about it.
Never gets worked up about anything.
No.
I mean, he is. Right now he's focused on that frat boy mentality. If you looked up the picture of frat boy in Google, his smiling picture, probably holding that pacifier, would pop right up on the Google sheet.
Well, I'm glad you got him out there chasing whitetails. That's exciting. I know you got something else to get to, so thanks for jumping on, Joe. Appreciate you, man.
All right, buddy. Thank you.
Thank you, brother.